If you're engaged to someone in Nigeria and you're trying to figure out how to get them here to the US, someone has probably told you just get the fiancé visa. And maybe someone else told you it's actually cheaper and faster to get the spousal visa instead. And now you're confused, you're searching YouTube, you just don't know what to do. You want someone to tell you what to do. And I'm going to help you do that. But I need to give you some context first because as of right now, the current option for Nigerian nationals that is not available is the spousal visa. And that changes the conversation significantly. First, I'm not your lawyer, and this is not legal advice. I just happen to be a lawyer in the US, and my fiance happens to be a lawyer in Nigeria, and we both found this process so confusing that we wanted to be here to help you. So, let's get into it. So my name is Victoria, and I'm a Philly-based attorney in the US, and my fiance is based in Lagos. We went through this exact same decision process for the K-1 or the spousal visa, and I'm not going to pretend the choice is the same for everyone. But right now, when this video is being filmed in 2026, it's a much simpler decision than it used to be if your partner is Nigerian. This is the first video in my series From Lagos to Philly, which covers every step of the process with specific attention to the Lagos consulate. Now let me address the elephant in the room. So effective January 1st, 2026, under the Presidential Proclamation 10998, the United States suspended immediate family immigrant visas, including the IR-1 and the CR-1 for Nigerian nationals. That suspension was further extended January 21st, 2026, when the Department of State paused all immigrant visa issuances to nationals of Nigeria and 74 other countries. What does that mean in regular English? As of the time that I'm making this video, if your partner is Nigerian, the CR-1 spouse visa is not being issued. You are still able to apply, go through the entire process and get an interview, but at the end they'll say, we can't issue you a visa. The K-1 visa, on the other hand, is still being issued, and that distinction matters enormously. So I want to sit with that for a moment because I know what that means if you're watching this. If you got married in Nigeria, your family kind of expected this traditional wedding before the immigration process started, and you planned your whole life around the CR-1 visa, this is very difficult of a decision to make, and it's hard news to hear, and it really is a difficult place to be. I'm not going to gloss over that. What I can tell you is that the K-1 path is open for those of you who have not gotten married yet, and it's working. And this entire series exists to walk you through that step by step. And if the CR-1 visa becomes available again, I'll update the video and talk about that. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and tell you to plan your life around a visa that's not being issued right now and has no guaranteed timeline for when it's going to start being issued again. Okay, let's also make sure we're speaking the same language here. Now, the K-1 is a fiancé visa. You are not married yet. Your partner comes to the United States for the purpose of getting married, and you get married within 90 days after arrival. Then you apply for the green card, which is a totally separate process called an adjustment of status, which happens while you both are here in the US. Now, the CR-1 visa is an immigrant visa. So you're married first, wherever you get married, and then you apply to immigrate as a permanent resident. When you arrive, you are on a CR-1, which means you come holding conditional permanent residency. No adjustment of status is needed. The core difference is just literally the K-1 visa, you come here and get married. The CR-1 visa means you already married, you immigrate here. Let's talk about the timelines because that is something that's really of interest of a lot of people. Before the current policy where they stopped issuing the immigrant visas, the CR-1 was taking about 2 to 3 years from filing for Nigerian applicants. That's 2 to 3 years of additional long distance relationship, which you should really consider when you're thinking about what visa to apply for. That was a huge decider for me and my fiance because I didn't want to be away from him for that long. So the K-1 timeline is significantly shorter. My own process, which I'll be really transparent about throughout this entire series, is running about 12 months from the day that I filed to the day of his interview, with the visa issuance coming a couple of weeks after that, and then the time to travel over here being about 6 months from the medical, which I'll talk about later. Now, I also want to talk about how the pricing is different because this is also a big consideration. And let's be real, like that is something that some people really have to take into consideration because the K-1 visa is not cheap. So to file the initial form, the I-129F is $675. There is a visa application, there's a visa fee, which is $285. And then when you come here to the US, every state has a different fee for their marriage licenses. In Pennsylvania, where I am, it's $90. And then depending on what you want to apply for, you have to apply for the adjustment of status, which is $1,440. You can apply for a work permit because when you are adjusting your status, you can't work unless you have a work permit. So you can apply for that simultaneously, which is $260. And you can also apply for advanced parole for travel, which I'll talk about later, which means you can, once you get that, you can travel before you get your green card off of the United States. That's $630, which both of those last two ones are optional. But they're all filed together if you want to do them. So that brings us to around $3,400. And that's not a small amount of money. Now, the CR-1 visa has the same initial fee of $675. You pay the immigration fee of the immigration visa application fee of $285 as well. But you also pay an immigration fee of about $235. And you have to pay for the DS-260, which is $445. So that brings us to about $1,640 for the CR-1, which is way less than the K-1. So that is a consideration for you. But what I'll say is, although the CR-1 is cheaper, the K-1 costs you more on the back end, but gets your partner here significantly quicker. So you're kind of just paying for the time to be with your partner. Both paths have costs that don't show up in the government fee totals, and for the Lagos consulate specifically, these add up in ways that catch people off guard. So I want to make sure that you know that there are hidden fees. So the medical exam, you'd have to budget anywhere between $300 and $500 for, depending on the clinic, depending on your age, what vaccines you have, and I'll talk about that later. The police report you have to get for your final document review and your interview could be anywhere from 47,000 Naira to, maybe 3 times that if you need it expedited. And then you'll need passport photos, which are about 3,000 to 30,000 Naira. And that just depends on quality, where you get it printed, etc. And then you have to consider that your partner will have to go to the U.S. Embassy twice. So you go first for the document review, which is a week or less apart from the interview date. So now when they check your paperwork, you have to go to Lagos. So wherever you are, you have to get there and be there for that date. So that's travel, that's lodging, that's food, whatever. And then you have to come back. And that could be very expensive. I mean, you could stay for the week, you could do other things, but that is an expense that you have to consider for both visas because you have to do that for both the CR-1 and the K-1 visa. A few other things I want to mention because the timeline and the costs aren't the whole picture. Just so you know that for the K-1, when you arrive, you can't start working immediately until your work permit is approved. Right now, the timeline for the work permit is interesting because it takes longer than to get your green card. And when you get your green card, you can work. So some people are not applying for the work permit in conjunction with their adjustment of status. They're just applying for the adjustment status and waiting for that, which is running about 5 to 9 months. When you have the CR-1 visa, as soon as you arrive, you're a conditional green card holder, so you can start earning income almost immediately, but it just depends on if your U.S. partner can float you and, cover your costs for the time if you come for the K-1 visa versus you guys start working, you start working immediately. You have to consider the 90-day marriage window. This is likely for people who are serious about this visa. It is not hard to do. It is really hard to plan because when you're going through the visa process, you don't know the timing really until you are told you're approved at the interview. So you really can't, sometimes you can't plan the biggest of weddings. A lot of people go to the courthouse, but you have to do that within 90 days to really satisfy your visa requirements. where, it's important because the marriage situation, you might want to be married in Nigeria. That might be a part of your tradition and your family's desires, and that will completely foreclose you from the K-1 visa. But if you are flexible, if your family's flexible, if you can go back later for a ceremony, then the K-1 visa is something that you can do. But if you get married, you cannot do the K-1 visa. Also, the K-1 visa is not available to people who are not U.S. citizens. It's only available to U.S. citizens. So if your U.S. counterpart only has a green card, is a lawful permanent resident, not a citizen, you cannot file for the K-1. So your only option at that point is going to be the CR-1 visa. And you don't, it just really doesn't matter what the K-1 visa timeline is. The CR-1 visa is your only option. And you, at this point in 2026, will have to wait indefinitely to get that visa issued. So all that said, here's how you decide. Here's the framework. If your partner is in Nigeria, they are Nigerian, and you are a U.S. citizen and you want them here as soon as possible, do the K-1. It's faster. It's currently being issued, and that's what the rest of the series is going to cover. If you're a green card holder, not a citizen, look, you cannot use the K-1 visa. You have to use the marriage visa, so you might as well get married where you want to get married and then come and do the application for the CR-1. In that case, you should probably consult a lawyer just to see what you need for that process, especially given the political climate right now. Now, if you're watching this video some point in the future and the ban has been lifted, the K-1, the CR-1 is worth considering if you are okay with a longer timeline, because it's cheaper and you come here, you don't have to adjust your status, you can start working immediately. So that's something to consider. But right now in 2026, that's not even being offered. So I would say if you're not married yet, the K-1 visa is the quicker option and is really the only option when it comes to these family visas. So as I wrap up this video, I just hope that that was a helpful explanation. And if you have any questions, let me know below. What I'll be doing for the rest of the videos is going to be talking about the K-1 visa, how to do it, what you're supposed to do, what documents you need, everything that you need to know, starting with a video that is a full overview of what the K-1 visa is. I'm also writing about this journey with my significant other on Substack, and the link is in the description. And if you want to follow along, that is more of the love journey of me and my fiance, and this is more, here's how you get the K-1 visa done and done right. So again, drop your questions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.